And so the first question is, what brought God's wrath upon the earth? And if you look in chapter 6 of Genesis, it was because the people were so wicked, there was only one good person left, and that was Noah and his family. And basically, he sent the flood just to show how seriously he takes sin. Our sin is deserving of death and not deserving of God's mercy at all. Even Noah was not worthy to be saved, but God saved him, and he saved us. And so why did God destroy all living things rather than just mankind? And it's because the earth had been corrupted, and God just wanted to start over again. Really, God is just showing how seriously he takes sin. What does this event teach you about God's character and about man's character? And it shows that God is holy. God is absolutely holy and absolutely right in everything he does. He made us. We rebelled against him, and he has every right to do what he wants with us. But he's also very merciful because he saved Noah and did not completely give up on us. And man's character, we are very ungrateful for God. And we're absolutely not worthy of any good thing God gives us. But God loves us anyway. Why did God select Noah? How was he different from the people around him? Well, God chose Noah because Noah walked with him. And in a little while I'll explain to you what walking with God means. But yeah, chapter 6, verse 9 says that Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his generation, and he walked with God. God is both merciful and just. And that's one of the key points from John MacArthur's book. People often focus on mercy at the expense of God's justice. And God's mercies are new every morning, and he's so forgiving of us. But he's also just, and he's not going to let sin go unpunished. And a lot of people think, I don't believe God's going to send anybody to hell. But if you think, we had a Holocaust where one man killed 6,000 Jews, or probably more than 6 million Jews. We have the pogroms in Sudan, and in China, and in Thailand, and Vietnam, and pretty soon it's going to happen here in America. And there's abortions and war, and how can you sleep at night not knowing that God's going to judge all that someday? I mean, if there's no justice, then we can do whatever we want and have no consequences. So we've got to believe that God's both merciful and just. We won't have any incentive to even reach out to the poor or the suffering around the world. One day God will send his full justice on man's sin and wickedness. And the second point is God always rescues his people from his wrath. God kept Noah and his family safe from the flood. He will keep the church safe from his full wrath. As in 1 John 3:13, we will suffer, but that is only temporary, whereas God's wrath brings eternal damnation and separation from his presence. So on this earth, Christians probably will suffer because of their faith. They will be persecuted, they might even die, but they will never have to suffer eternal separation from God. And the third point is the ark is a picture of Christ and his church. Christ keeps us safe from God's wrath. He is God's presence among his people, and only Christ's body keeps us safe. Just as Noah and his family were only safe within the ark that God gave us, we as Christians are only safe from God's wrath if we are in the blood of Christ. And so God's not necessarily just saving him from sin. As Mark Driscoll said, he's saving us from himself. And then the fourth point is Noah, etc., and all his people are historical facts. The flood really happened. Noah really happened. It really was a worldwide flood. And 8 people really did repopulate the whole earth. And we're all related to each other. Black, white, Native American, Asian. There's no such thing as race. So we're all related to each other. We're all descendants of Noah. And the fifth point, Noah walked with God. And at this point I'm going to mention Enoch. In Genesis 5, verses 21 to 24, we have Enoch. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. And after he became the father of Methuselah, he walked with God 300 years. And altogether he lived 365 years And all of a sudden, Enoch was no more because God took him away. So he walked with God so much that God decided he didn't have to die. He just took him to heaven. And so Noah also demonstrated what God desires in his people, a heart that is steadfast in obedience. Noah did not question God or argue against God's plan. He did just what God told him to do. On page 78 of MacArthur's book, it says, in other words, Noah's entire life was characterized by the presence of God. And on page 81, consciousness, walking with God is a consciousness of God's presence at all times. Everywhere he went, he walked as though God were beside him, recognizing that God was watching and listening. So people who walk with God make their whole lives a prayer to him, like the Keith Green song, I make my life a prayer to you. God is always on their thoughts. They are always aware that God is watching them. They talk to him at all times of the day. And even when they're with people, they're always thinking, will this please God or not? And so I'm going to turn my camera off, go get my guitar, and turn it back on, and I'm going to do a song that's about the opposite of walking with God. And so, all right.